Shalom, 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 brothers and sisters. This is your brother Kazak Yah. And I want to do a lesson real quick on the subject of Easter, right? Many people want to know, what does the Bible have to say about Easter? And so this, don't change the channel, don't disconnect. I want you to listen, because if you really are a believer of the Bible and you want to be right and accurate and you want to follow the Bible itself, then we want to be congruent with the Bible. So I'm going to ask some questions and I want you to address these questions, right? And so now in Matthew chapter 12, the Messiah was asked a question by the Pharisees, right? And we're going to deal with the Pharisees in a minute, but I want to deal with this question that they asked. The Pharisees, this is Matthew chapter 12, verse 38. It says, certain of the scribes and of the Pharisees answered, saying, Master, we would see a sign from thee. Okay. So in other words, the Pharisees and scribes didn't believe the Messiah was the promised Messiah. So they asked him, they said, we want a sign so that we will know that you are this Messiah that was prophesied in the prophets, specifically in Daniel chapter 9, right? All right. So he said, the Messiah responded to them and says, verse 39, but he answered and said to them, an evil and adulterous generation seeketh a sign, and there shall no sign be given to it but the sign of the prophet Jonah. Now, the question I want to ask you is the Messiah playing a game with them, or is he telling the truth? Is he giving them a sign so that they would know that he is all that was prophesied and all that those that say? Remember, the Messiah asked the disciples, who do men say I am, right? When they said, thou art the Christ, the English word Christ, they were saying, you are the Messiah who the prophet spoke about, right? Now, so the Messiah said himself, here's the sign that you will know that I am the Messiah. He said, for verse 40, as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. Now, from Friday to Sunday, you can't count 3 days and 3 nights. If he died on Friday at the middle of the day, you count Friday night, that's 1 night. You count Saturday night, that's 2 nights. You got to count Sunday night to get 3 nights. Okay? So it couldn't be a Sunday morning resurrection. Now, if you go according to the days, you got to count Saturday, all day Sunday, and all day Monday before the sun goes down to complete 3 days. So the Messiah said that the sign I'm going to give you is the sign of the prophet, or of Jonah, the prophet, who was 3 days and 3 nights into the whale's belly. Okay. Now we see the same thing somewhere else. In Luke 11:30, we're going to read it. Luke 11:30 says the same thing. He says, for as Jonah was a sign unto the Ninevites, so shall also the Son of Man be to this generation. So Jonah was a sign, right? Now, the book of Jonah, chapter 1, verse 17 says, now Yah, the Most High, had prepared a great fish to swallow up Jonah, right? And Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. So Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. So my question is, how do we get Good Friday and Easter Sunday if the Messiah said that the sign would be 3 days and 3 nights? Either Good Friday's wrong or Sunday's wrong, or both are wrong. Okay. All right. Now, so we've covered Matthew 12. We've covered Jonah 1. We've covered, let's read Matthew 16 and 4. It says, a wicked and an adulterous generation seek a sign, but there shall no sign be given unto it but the sign of the prophet Jonah. And he left them and he departed. So the Messiah said it again in Matthew 16 that the sign is the sign of the prophet. So is he lying, or has someone deceived us into believing a lie? Okay. The Messiah said that he will be in the heart of the earth 3 days and 3 nights, and it will be as the sign of Jonah, the prophet. 3 days and 3 nights. Okay. All right. Now, Luke 11:30 we covered. Matthew 6 and 3. I'm not going to read that, but basically I will read it. He says, and in the morning it will be foul weather today, and for the sky is red and lowering. He says, oh, you hypocrites, you discern the face of the sky, but you cannot discern the signs of times. So the Messiah gave him a sign. He said, this is the sign that I am the Messiah. When you see me in the heart of the earth 3 days and 3 nights, you will know I'm not a fraud, right? All right. Now, so what I want to point out is that someone that's watching this video will say, well, brother, those were Pharisees and scribes, and the Messiah rebuked them, right? Yeah, he rebuked them, but he also gave them a specific instruction with regards to what the Pharisees said. So we're going to look at that right quick. The Messiah said first in Matthew 5 and 20, he says, for I say unto you, except that your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees, you shall in no case enter into the kingdom of heaven. So he said, except your righteousness exceeds the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees. So the scribes and the Pharisees were hypocrites. Okay, we're going to show you how we know. The Messiah said in Matthew 23. Let's go to Matthew 23, right? I'm almost finished. Matthew 23. I'm going to read verse 1 through 3. Okay, the Messiah said these words. Matthew 23, verse 1. Then spoke the Messiah, Yahushua, to the multitude and his disciples, saying, the scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat, right? All therefore whatsoever they bid you, observe and do. But do not after their works, for they say and do not. Okay? So, in other words, he said, all that they say, in other words, what did they say? What the law and the prophets said. All that they say, observe and do, right? But don't do after what he said. But don't do after their works, for they say and do not. So what is he saying? The Pharisees were hypocrites. He wasn't saying don't obey the law. He was saying what the Pharisees do, don't do. Okay, I wanted to throw that out there because somebody will probably try to tear the whole lesson apart and say, well, the Pharisees, you don't do nothing the Pharisees do. The Messiah himself, the Holy Messiah, told the disciples, whatever the Pharisees bid you to do, you do it. But don't do after them because they say and they don't do. Okay, so that's what he means by when he says, except your righteousness exceeds the righteousness of the Pharisees. All right, now we got to get to this answer this question. Easter, when did the Messiah die? Okay. All right. Now, before I do that, let's see. I'm going to skip past that. Basically, I'm going to just kind of say this here. I had something else I wanted to share, but I'm going to say this here. Okay. We are supposed to be defenders of the word of the Most High. Everything that what he was saying in plain words to the disciples was guard the law and not throw it away, not say it's done. Okay. Now, having said that, we move on to when did the Messiah die? Okay. Now, we want to set some time. So we know that the Messiah was born. Absolutely, right? Okay. So now the Messiah was not born at 0 AD or 1 AD. Okay. The AD and the BC has nothing to do with his birth. It has to do with the time change, right? It has to do with prophecy, right? According to, and you can go and Google a question. Ask him, when was the Messiah born? And Google will tell you, will tell you that the Messiah was born 6 BC. Okay? He was born 6 BC. So BC does not stand for before Christ. Okay? BC stands for, and you can Google it, stands for before the common era. Okay? AD stands for Anno Domini, which means in the year of the Lord. Okay? And that doesn't have anything to do with the Messiah. Okay? All right? So now that we understand that the Messiah was born in 6 BC. Okay? So now, according to Matthew's, or Luke, I should say, Luke 3:23, the Messiah, when he began his ministry, he was 30 years old. Okay? So now, if we count 3 years back, or 3 years from 33 AD, which is what people have proposed, the Messiah died 33 AD, which is not correct. We've got to subtract 6 from that, and 6 from 33, 32, 31, 30, 29, 28, 27. That's 27. That's 33 years, okay? So 27, AD 27 was when he died. If you go back 3 years from that, we'll have 27, 26, 25, 24. So AD 24 was when the Messiah began his ministry, right? He began his ministry in AD 24. Now, if you go to Daniel chapter 9, right? Daniel chapter 9, verse 27 tells us when the Messiah died. He began his ministry at 24 AD, right? When he was 30 years old. Okay? Now, Daniel 9:27 says that he shall confirm, not create. So the confirm has to do with the Messiah. It has nothing to do with an anti-Messiah coming in the future. He shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. And in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. And for overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate, even until the consumption and the determined shall be poured upon the desolator. Okay, so the Messiah, it says that in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease. So when the Messiah died and the veil was ripped in half, that caused what? The sacrifice to stop, because there was no more temple. So that was in the middle. Prophetically, you got to understand that 7 weeks, right? In the middle of 7 weeks, which would be 7 years, would be 3.5. Okay. So the Messiah died at 3.5 years into his ministry, which happened to be in the middle of the year. I'm sorry, let me go back here. Middle of the week, right? And in the middle of his ministry, right? At the time of the spring equinox that year, which happened to be during the Passover. Okay? He was the Passover lamb. All right. So now, hopefully you didn't get confused. If you did, send me a question. We'll address it. But I want you to understand that the Messiah was cut off in the middle of the week, which would be the middle of the week is what day? Wednesday, right? Okay. Now, on the basis of that, what I want to do is want to give you, you can go to timeanddate.com is the website where you can get a calendar. I did the research. Okay. You can see this. Can you see that? If you go back to year 27 in Israel, That year, the Passover was on the calendar here. It shows you the 8th day at even, right? Going into the 9th. So the 8th day at even started the first day of unleavened bread. Okay, going into the Passover, going into the first day of unleavened bread, which is in the middle of the week. So the middle of the week would be Wednesday. So you count Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night. So you got Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, because the evening and the morning starts today. The day doesn't begin at 12 midnight. According to the Bible, according to Genesis chapter 1, the evening and the morning is the day. So the evening starts today. So what the world calls Tuesday at evening is Wednesday night. Okay, so you have Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night. Then you have Wednesday day, Thursday day, Friday day. The Messiah rose at the end of the 6th day, which led right into the 7th day, or the Shabbat. So he didn't raise on the first day of the week. He died in the middle of the week, which the world calls Wednesday, and he rose on the 3rd day, which happened to be the 6th day, in preparation of going into the Sabbath at the end of the day as the sun goes down. With that said, prayerfully, you understand that the Messiah didn't die on Good Friday and didn't resurrect on Easter Sunday. Now I'm going to say this as I close. Easter has nothing to do with the Messiah's resurrection. Easter is a pagan festivity that started with the goddess Astarte, which is a Greek equivalent to the Canaanite Ashtoreth. And you can find Ashtoreth in 1 Kings chapter 15, when King Shlomo, 1 Kings chapter 11, and I think it's verse 5, when King Shlomo had got old and he had all these wives, and he built altars of worship for their deities. Ashtoreth was the deity or the goddess of fertility, the goddess of sexual love. She also is the same person as Aphrodite. That's where you get the word aphrodisiac from, right? And that's why you have the Easter eggs and the bunnies, and they call it Easter because Easter is Astarte, which goes back to Semiramis in Babylon, and Tammuz. You can find that in the scriptures, where the Most High rebuked Israel for worshiping the sun, and Tammuz. So Easter basically is all wrapped around the worship of the sun. That's why you have the sunrise service, because sunrise service has everything to do with the sun, right? Why is it that Easter always follows the first Sunday after the first full moon? Because it has to do with the sun. It never changes. Passover changes according to the season, okay? According to the spring equinox within conjunction with the new moon within conjunction with the season, okay? Then you have the new year, okay? Whereas in the pagan calendar, they celebrate New Year in January, but then you come around in April, you follow the first full moon after the spring equinox. The Sunday that follows the first full moon after the spring equinox is always going to be Easter, which has to always fall on the day of the sun, Sol Invictus. Okay, so prayerfully, you can research. And as I always say, you don't never have to believe nothing I say. Anything that I say, you read it and research it and find out. If I'm wrong, if you can prove me wrong, I will pay you to prove me wrong. But you can't, because it's documented and it's true. With that said, shalom, shalom, shalom.